What's up, you guys? So, a bomb was dropped yesterday. Now, this is not about motocross or anything, but I am going to be getting into this, something that I figured that I should do since I did a story in college on this, and that's the new Aloha Stadium. And while the demolition of the original Aloha Stadium is still scheduled for the end of this month, August, unfortunately, the opening date has been pushed back again, and there are 2,500 less seats in that new stadium. But before I get to that, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to see some more of my games. I'm hopeful to have one more up before this week is over, but we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, subscribe. Let's get into this. There it is. Aloha Stadium opening delayed to March 2029. 25,000 seat stadium dropped to 22,500. So seriously, obviously I've been following this story off and on because I did this story in college for UHMTV, and the first time around, the original finish date was supposed to be early last year, 2024. Unfortunately, whoever is running, the state kind of delayed it over and over and over again, and it just added up like credit card debt. And as a result, they aimed for the 2028 football season opener in August. But unfortunately, they said that the deadline, the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District, or NASED, or NAES, however you want to put it, they weren't too happy about it just as much as we were, but unfortunately, this is reality. And, you think about this. For a stadium to take this long to finish, when I heard it was supposed to be 2 years, they ran into some major hurdles. Because people I spoke with, now I'm not going to say any names, even though some people from Hawaii might have an idea of who I spoke with. But you know what? I'm just a YouTuber. I just like to state my opinion on the matter. But here's the thing. The people at NASED were not as happy as, were just as disappointed as we were. But the head of it all, I'm not going to say any names on this. The head of NASED had said that the opening date of August 2028 was an aggressive decision from the get-go. And I thought that they were going to meet their deadline, maybe meet that deadline, because it was 4 or 5 years from now. Unfortunately, it's 3 years from now, and now the date is pushed to March of 2029, which is very unfortunate, which means that UH football, they will continue to play at TC Ching Field for another 4 or 5 more years. And that's very unfortunate because that stadium, while the decision to move football from Halawa to Manoa was a general easy decision because the former athletics director had looked at playing on Maui as playing on the road. And I could kind of understand that because you're not playing on Oahu. And of course, University of Hawaii at Manoa, that's on the island of Oahu. And while Maui was an alternative, theoretically, somebody once told me, honestly, I kind of was hoping that they would play at TC Ching because it's kind of less work to do. They just had to increase the seating capacity. Now it's at 20,000 or something, 15, 20,000. But still, for the Mountain West to give UH a pass on that one, that was much needed. But you might give them one time, but asking for a second one, maybe. But a third time, they're probably going to be a little stingy about that deal. Now, my take on the opening for the new Aloha Stadium is, are you serious? But then again, the state of Hawaii doesn't have a really good track record of finishing projects on time, which is unfortunate when you consider that that other field, CC Ching, took a long time to be opened up, and UH is using it as its practice field when Aloha Stadium was still being used. But the problem was Aloha Stadium was getting really, really old, and there were a lot of hazards there, and people just still went through with it and just. But people in Hawaii, they want to keep original things until it's kaput. But the stadium was kaput for a long time because there were problems with the bathrooms and even some of the corrosion and the rust. That was starting to show, and yet still people continue to use it for concerts, UH football, high school graduations, the works. And my only memory of Aloha Stadium is the Hawaiian Supercross from 2019. That was probably one of maybe only 2 or 3 or 4 times that I've been to Aloha Stadium in the stadium. And of course, there's the 50th State Fair, but unfortunately, that's on hold. And the extra unfortunate thing is the state had the going away party for the Aloha Stadium in 2020, and to this day, that OG stadium is still standing, which is really, really disappointing. But still, again, what do you expect? I think the state really thinks too much. But then again, I'm kind of guilty of that kind of stuff too, but not as bad as this one. No question about it. Okay? And I was looking on Twitter, and Josh Pacheco of ESPN Honolulu called it a gut punch on his own Twitter or X account. And I agree. That's a gut punch. I was all for a new stadium for a long time. And some other people in the state legislature, they all voted for a new stadium too. Unfortunately, one of the prior governors, who I'm not going to name here, just for the sake of keeping myself on people's good sides, I'm not going to name that governor, but people in Hawaii, you know who that guy is. But don't ever go after him or his family or anything else, because that makes you twice as guilty. Okay? And despite the fact that this particular governor was the big hurdle of all time, it just goes to show that, unfortunately, we're in this situation because of that former governor. If they started that thing back then, when people at the UH Board of Regents, when some were calling for a new stadium, the right people just looked the other way, which is really, really disastrous. And as a result, this is where we are right now. And had they just listened and green-lighted the project 10 years ago, they probably could have finished it before COVID. And the delay of the opening might be when the pandemic was over. But still, it's really unfortunate. I was all for a new stadium, and I'm sure a lot of other people were too. But still, the way that this was handled was extremely disappointing and to a point unprofessional. But I'm just using disappointing more along the lines. But there are stadiums that can finish a new stadium in like 2 years, while we need like 6 or 7 years, maybe 3 times that amount of time. But still, it is what it is. And if NASA doesn't like it as much as we do, what can we do? It's a double-edged blade again. So anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. So remember, guys, so that's all for today. And I just thought I'd keep it a little short. So delaying of the new Aloha Stadium opening is now the spring of 2029. And let's hope that the state will meet that deadline for sure. But while the demolition is still scheduled for the end of this month, there's still some bad news that comes with it. And what you're seeing on this, that's the bad news, unfortunately. But hopefully they'll figure out some way to get those 2,500 seats back, but it's still kind of easier said than done. I'm not really too big on that kind of stuff, on what could be done better. But the only thing that I see that really should have been done was they should have jumped on it as soon as people started complaining about the stadium. From the outside, it looks okay, but inside, you'll see a lot of troubles. So anyway, guys, that's all for today. And remember, subscribe, and I'll see you all for my 250 recap from Ironman Raceway. I'll probably have that posted on Friday. So thanks, guys. Subscribe, and I'll see you all again.